Hi YouTube, it's Princess Ozeline. Right now, we're in the Jewish High Holy Days, and that's a time for self-reflection and atonement leading into going into the new year. And I want to get some stuff off my chest. I've been working on converting towards Judaism for about the past 4 years, but 2 years ago things got really rocky. I had a major mental health episode precipitated by antidepressants that did not work well with me, and I ended up making myself unwelcome in a couple spaces. I'm working with a different rabbi than I was at the time, and I'm also was also banned from an online Jewish community. Well, again, it was a mental health episode that precipitated this. I had either a manic or psychotic episode. I think manic episode is the correct. I managed to. The psychiatrists I ended up dealing with, I managed to have them discharge me right away, which was probably a mistake. But I think manic is the correct term. At any rate, I had no control over myself, but I was venting all of these thoughts, which was a lot of guilt over what went down with my abusers. First my father, and then later a roommate who I was with for about 10 years, and there was a brief moment where it was a romantic thing. Very, very brief, fortunately for me. I just felt very guilty for enabling them, for maybe some actions carried out at their behest that I didn't realize were harmful at the time, but added to the climate. I think maybe not in major ways, maybe not in drastic ways, but still not something I'm proud of. I've wanted to make this video for so long to have for myself, because I think this is how I move on. But I didn't want it to come across as a white girl apology thing. And I think that I already had my white girl apology moment during the episode. I had been making fun of my own past self in the space, and somebody called me a Nazi who had been banned from multiple communities on the website that I had linked to, which was not the case. I've never been banned from any community on that website, and I'm still a member of the only community I've ever been a member of. So there was some conflation with somebody else, but that sparked things and these unresolved feelings of guilt. And for a brief moment, I wondered if that label had applied to me. And I don't think I can say that it ever did. But I was adjacent to some not so great people. And I want to talk about that for myself, and maybe it'll be useful for other people who've kind of been partway down the pipeline. I know hearing stories from people who've left cults or gotten off the pipeline has been helpful and healing to me, so maybe that'll be the case. Maybe this will just be for me. So I don't know if my father was always a hardcore anti-Semite. He certainly concealed it for some time. I didn't know about it until after I graduated high school, but he had been dropping hints for a while. He didn't like it when I saw a cabaret in my high school's theater appreciation class. And he took me to see the X-Men movie, which I was and am a big superhero fan. And in the first X-Men movie, there's a scene where Magneto, who is a Jewish character and originally written by Jewish writers, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, and then later Chris Claremont, and finally the Jewish director Bryan Singer, who is also gay and also a very bad person. But that part isn't totally relevant here. This isn't about Bryan Singer, it's about me. But Magneto has his speech when he turns Senator Kelly into a mutant about God and about evolution. And my dad didn't like that one bit. So in the theater, after in the parking lot, he starts talking about it and says how that's not about God, it's about evolution, and how evolution is a lie and whatever, blah blah blah, that kind of stuff. And my brother says, well, it's just mindless entertainment. He says, no, it's very mindful entertainment. I like the mindless part. I don't like the mindful. That's one of the first dog whistle things I remember. Although he and his mother, my grandmother, were very much more evangelical than my mom's side of the family. We're fans of Jack Van Impe and end times stuff. So there was a lot of New World Order, globalist, international bankers. That kind of stuff got thrown around, which I didn't know the subtext of at the time. Later, he actually took me to see Life is Strange, the Holocaust movie starring Roberto Benigni. And there's a part when Benigni's character had a friend who is a doctor and becomes the doctor at the concentration camp. And he'd always been helping this doctor out with riddles. And the film sets it up like this doctor is actually going to help his friend get out of the concentration camp. But all he wants is the answer to another riddle. My father asked me after the movie what the answer to the riddle was. Said I didn't know. He said it was that the doctor was a monster. And that I did know. Literary analysis is kind of my thing. I could have told him what the implications of the scene was. It took me many years, long after I'd stopped talking to him, to realize what he was trying to teach me there. The implication in his mind, I think, was that the film was saying white people or people of German heritage are monsters, rather than Nazis are monsters, which is not the same message. Although I guess in his eyes is. Another incident. I have a couple semi-famous relatives, distant relatives that I've never met. I got confused. I actually thought Shel Silverstein was one of them. Isn't. But I got confused, brought this up, and this was after my dad and my mom separated. So he pulls a copy of Where the Sidewalk Ends off the shelf, looks at Silverstein's picture, turns to his, tells me that's definitely not the case, turns to his girlfriend. They have sort of this hushed, I know, going on. So there was definitely years where he was down that bandwagon and was trying to lead me with breadcrumbs. Another was the asking me why the Bible shifts over time towards the end towards the later books in what the Christians call the Old Testament. It was always Israelite or Hebrew, and then when you get to Esther, it's Jew. So he wanted me to ask me why that was, and I didn't. I wasn't too fussed about finding out, but he would continually ask me this over several meetings. And eventually I found out why, in his opinion, that's the case. There's several conspiracy theories that he was in on. One of them was the Khazar origin theory, that Ashkenazi Jews are not descended from Judeans, but were descended from the Khazars. And the book of Esther is the only book in the Bible that doesn't mention God by name. So there's a lot of interesting Jewish thought on that. But for my dad, that was God telling us that was the false book of the Bible, and by extension, that the Holocaust is also a fraud. Another conspiracy theory he believed was that in serpent seed origin, that Jews are descended from Cain, and Cain in turn is the child of the serpent, who is the Christian Lucifer, and Eve. Also, black people are pre-Adamic man, so just white supremacist bullshit all around. So eventually he reveals this to me, tells me that Jewish people are compulsive liars, that they are unable to make things grow because of the mark of Cain, which in reality was a stereotype about Jews not making good farmers because Jewish people were not allowed to own farmland, or any land actually, in much of Europe for a good long time, and were confined to, ghettos and other sort of smaller communities where they were forced to take up other trades, which led to other stereotypes. But and Khazar origin theory that is also completely discredited. That through linguistics and DNA testing, there's absolutely no proof of it. There quite likely were Khazar Jewish converts, influential ones too, although the historical record is not very complete on that. There is interesting videos from Jewish perspectives on that. Would totally recommend looking it up. Just make sure you're getting a good source. I will put a link in the description for a good video on that. But so eventually my dad comes out with this, we're the real Israelites, and Jewish people are literally the spawns of Satan. And I wish I had, but I didn't break off contact with him right then and there. It would still be years yet, and I engaged in discussion with him on it. Slowly broke off contact over time. He ended up stalking me towards the end of his life, sending me presents when I wouldn't speak to him or acknowledge him. Presents with very passive aggressive comments. By the time my dad came out with this, I had a friend who didn't identify as Jewish, but was the matrilineal descendant of a survivor of the Shoah. I sort of could reject things on the basis of her friendship alone, but one thing that I think led to my feelings of guilt was the idea that my interest in Judaism might partially stem from my abusers, and they're exposing me to things because of their own obsession, and them seeing something that they thought maybe on one level was interesting and also on another level was sinister, and me only seeing the interesting part. That wasn't fully the case. I made a lot of Jewish friends through fandom, especially overlapping with my time with my second abuser, who were happy to share culture and philosophy, and it resonated and filled a gap that my leaving Christianity left in me, because I really do need I'm someone who I think does need religion and spirituality in order to be complete, and Jewish philosophy just works for me. But I think I had more guilt over my second abuser, because I fell into, I got tricked by somebody who was like my dad, and I didn't realize it. She was a white trans woman, and I thought a leftist. She was a big fan of Aaron Sorkin, loved The West Wing and The Newsroom, and was always talking about trans healthcare and making that more available. But her conspiracy theory bent and racism became more obvious as time went on. You know, she would talk down. I never went with her to any political rallies because I could not stand her behavior in those spaces. But she always managed to center her you know, her causes, and sometimes at the expense of BIPOC people. Yes, she definitely did. And to some extent, I enabled that. She tried to organize a political campaign for herself. She has run for office a few times now, but I helped her with some video editing, and for her campaign. You know, I helped her make signs, and I did absorb some of her ideas, and she got more into this libertarian mindset, thinking that the NDP was not doing enough for trans people. And so she thought that right-wing people would understand. They could understand that it was a issue of personal freedom as opposed to government overreach. They would get on our side. And she was a fan of Jordan Peterson, and got more and more into this QAnon, deep state stuff, 9/11 conspiracy theories, JFK conspiracy theories, and it all really came to a head with the 2020 election, when we were already losing our apartment at that point. But after 10 years, she blamed me for being one of the sheeple that was taking away American democracy, even though we're Canadian. She asked me who killed JFK, and when she didn't like my answer, she went full off on me, and that was the end of any semblance of friendship. But I felt like I should have escaped sooner. I was in a barely functional state, barely able to keep my job, and not able to do much beyond that. So, but I did somewhat get dragged down the pipeline by her. When Gamergate happened and later Comicsgate happened, she didn't get me ideologically aligned with them, but and I had no idea who Zoe Quinn was. I didn't really care to hear about them because some, and I should have cared to hear about them, but not from my roommate. But with Anita Sarkeesian, I did know who Anita Sarkeesian was because I was a fan of Feminist Frequency. And my roommate got me to turn not against their content, but managed to convince me that they were up to sort of nefarious things with their Kickstarter and their nonprofit. And a similar situation with Mike Wade with Comicsgate. Mark Wade, rather. Sorry. I was also a fan of his comics. Not his Fantastic Four run, but I liked enough of his comics. But yeah, no, managed to get me thinking that maybe he was up to some not so good stuff. And I was a bit of a... This is a term that's kind of ableist, and I'm not really... No, I have a good term. It's patsy. I became patsy. That's not ableist. So that's what led me to making some unsavory comment, and got me on this unlimited free speech thing, which we see how that's working out with Twitter now. Yeah, no, the yeah, that's what led to me making comments that I regret on that community. Not enough to get me banned, but some poor taste stuff and some bad literary analysis coming from this position that deplatforming makes things worse and enables yeah. And that's about it. That is about it. In the end, I think I've managed to forgive myself for the interactions I've had with my father and with my roommate. But I carry a lot of shame from the breakdown. Because I was questioning if I was, if my interest in Judaism stemmed from, even in part from my abusers, if I was fetishizing, or if I was somehow as bad as my dad. So when I was having my breakdown, I self-questioned, like, am I a there was a lot of discussion about white trans women and Nazi phases going around at the time, which is happening now because that is actually a very big problem. So because I had been called that word, I was wondering, am I as guilty as these other people? And I don't think I ever was as guilty, but I was definitely in bad company. And I think I've been ashamed of the breakdown. I've not been very functional. I had 2 years from 2020, from the end of 2020 to end of at least 2 really good years, and even going into 2023, I was after I initially recovered from my breakdown, I was somewhat functional. I had a couple really good years, but things have deteriorated again because I've been avoiding a lot of people. I mean, I still have had been working with a new rabbi, but I've kind of dropped off a little bit on that on my own volition. Though I'm hoping to sort of rekindle and get that going again after the after the holidays are over. But I withdrew from a lot of friends, and some friendships drifted away. Others I've just been withdrawn from on my end, and my friends are still there. They're still concerned for me, but I've been distant, and I've not been getting help that I need. I'm gonna be making another video on that. This channel is for fun media analysis and stuff, but I do need to address this to move on. So there'll be one more video about my current state, but I felt like I needed to make this, to have this record, and to forgive myself. So maybe it'll be helpful to hear someone else to hear about this, and maybe they'll be able to forgive themselves too. If you were on that pipeline and you hurt people, they don't necessarily owe you forgiveness, but you should always try and make amends and forgive yourself, for sure. Okay. That's it for now. Bye-bye.